Nigerians are poised to vote in Saturday's presidential election after the initial vote was abruptly called off by the Electoral Board a week ago. In Senegal, an organization of journalists and musicians known as Fed Up is scrutinizing candidates for Sunday's presidential elections. We'll have a report. And who will win the coveted 2019 Academy Awards? We'll tell you what elements make a movie the best picture of the year. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. At least 10 African nations are expected to hold general elections in 2019, according to the International Foundation for Electoral Systems. What is really at stake as these countries use the ballot box to deepen the quality of democratic governance? Here's Africa's 54's Paul Ndiho.
Tens of millions of people are expecting to vote in more than 10 African nations in 2019, according to the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, or IFES, a Washington, D.C.-based independent organization that supports citizens' right to participate in free and fair elections in more than 145 countries. Nigerian voters were scheduled to cast their ballots in the nation's presidential and parliamentary elections on February 16th. But just 5 hours prior to the polls opening, the country's Independent National Electoral Commission announced a one-week delay in the vote to Saturday, February 23rd. The Commission blamed logistical difficulties, including problems in distribution of ballots and result sheets, as well as sabotage, after 3 fires at its offices in the last 2 weeks.
We believe that ultimately this decision is good for our democracy and for our country. I wish to assure you of our commitment to free, fair, and credible elections.
2 main political parties swiftly accused each other of orchestrating the delay as a way to manipulate the vote, a sentiment echoed by some voters, many of whom had traveled long distances to vote in their hometowns. Political observers are predicting a tight race between incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari and chief challenger, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Buhari, 75, has been in office since 2015. In Senegal, voters head to the polls on February 24th, where incumbent President Macky Sall is facing 4 other primary challengers. President Sall, 57, was first elected in 2012. 2 opposition leaders, former Dakar Mayor Khalifa Sall and ex-Minister Karim Wade, were barred from running due to previous convictions for misuse of public funds. Thousands of supporters of both former candidates have staged protests in recent months calling for fair and transparent elections. The former French colony is seen as a model of democracy in the region, having never experienced a coup and successfully staging peaceful transfers of power in 2000 and 2012. Stakes are high in South Africa as voters gear up for general elections on May 8th. The ruling African National Congress Party, ANC, is looking to reverse its declining popularity due to weak growth, unemployment, and corruption. The opposition has latched onto ANC's corruption as an election trump card. The ANC is facing a tough fight to retain its dominance and proposing constitutional changes to address land right issues. The far-left South Africa Economic Freedom Fighters Party has land exploration and jobs at the top of its election agenda. Malawians are expected to cast their ballots in tripartite elections on May 21st. Voters will select a president, members of parliament, and local councillors. The election pits incumbent President Peter Mutharika of the Democratic Progressive Party against his former Vice President Saulas Chilema. Political observers say Chilema is seen as the biggest threat to Mutharika. Meanwhile, former President Joyce Banda has also joined the race after reversing a decision to join an alliance with the opposition. Political analysts say her announcement could be a game changer. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
Well, for the second time in a week, Nigerian voters are primed to cast their ballots in the nation's presidential election. The February 16th vote was abruptly delayed only hours before the polls were to open due to what the Independent National Electoral Commission Chairman Mahmoud Yakub says were logistical and operational issues. On Friday, President Muhammadu Buhari, who faces off against Atiku Abubakar on Saturday, urged Nigerians to go vote while promising beefed-up security for tomorrow's poll. For the latest election news, let's go live to VOA's Hawa Umar, who is standing by in Abuja. Good evening, Hawa. This election is being fought over President Buhari's handling of the economy and the growing unemployment, especially among the country's youth. How invested are the youth in Saturday's election?
Well, looking at the Nigerian economy right now, we would say that there is a lot of improvement. In a video, we saw the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibanjo, saying that when they took over power, the treasury account, that is the Nigerian treasury account, was almost empty, and now they retrieve over $36 billion. So we would say that there is a lot of improvement in the Nigerian economy. And then we won't forget that the backbone of this economy is fight against corruption, which is the major thing that is moving, that is taking Nigeria backwards. Corruption everywhere. Everybody is corrupt at his own level. So the present administration is fighting against corruption, which is also making an improvement to the Nigerian economy.
Now, President Buhari today, Friday, assured citizens of beefed-up security. Now, we know this is what has been said before, and we saw an attack just happen last week. What has he done, what has the government done this time that would be seen as different?
Well, the military and the police has assured security measures were in place. So I think though there is a lot of attacks here and there, but compared to previous years where the security situation of the country is, where the security situation of this country is brought about a lot of concern. Well, there is a security because the military and the police has also assured security measures to be taken. They are ready for these elections. So I think we are good for the security situation in Nigeria.
Indeed, we hope there will be security for everybody. Awa, thank you very much for your excellent reporting. Now that's VOA's Awa Umar reporting live from Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. Now, as we continue our coverage of the Nigerian presidential election, let's go to VOA's Peter Clotty, who's standing by in Lagos. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening. How are you?
Well, I'm well, Peter. Now, first, how can you describe the atmosphere in Abuja, where we know it's the capital, the commercial capital of that country, a day before the poll? Lagos, rather, Lagos.
Well, the mood has, I understand, the mood in Lagos is somber. A week ago, it was tensed. Several people spoke about the possibility of violence. This time around, people are joking. Others are returning to their homeland where they first registered. They went there, but of course, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission postponed it mere hours before the election itself. They said they were disappointed, but they are returning undeterred to vote in tomorrow's elections, Vincent.
But Peter, there were concerns that some people may not go back to their voting areas, perhaps because of the frustration from last week, and also, of course, the cost of transport back to their village and coming back to the city again. How has that been resolved, at least in Lagos?
Well, you have a point there. However, the people I spoke with at the motor parks and those that I interacted with in Osun State, Ile-Ife to be specific, said that they are undeterred. They will go back to where they registered because this is a civic responsibility they are not ready to shirk. And that in spite of the inconveniences that occurred to them, they are ready to go. Some are saying they will not vote at all because the system hasn't helped them in any way. Now, these are two competing narratives going on here in Lagos.
Now, very quickly, Peter, for the people you've spoken to, what are the major concerns for them in this election?
Well, it's like a 50-50 affair. Half of them say President Muhammad Buhari has delivered on his three main pillars on which he stood 4 years ago: economic improvement, fighting terrorism, or improving security and combating corruption. They said he has kept his mandate and he has blocked all the loopholes by which politicians siphoned money or committed acts or malfeasances here and there. However, those of his critics are saying that Nigeria is worse off and that the cost of living is high. That is why you've seen even the public sector workers negotiating hard with the government, demanding a 30,000 minimum wage, of which recently the government presented a bill to the National Assembly for it to be processed before the president signs into law. So it's a tussle here. It remains to be a 50-50 affair, but let's see what happens tomorrow.
Well, Peter, thank you for excellent reporting, Peter, there in Lagos. And earlier, Peter Close caught up with Nigeria's renowned author Wole Soyinka to get his thoughts on the nation's rescheduled elections tomorrow. Well, looks like there is a little technical problem there. We hope to get back to that. Let's now turn our attention to Senegal, where among the interest groups scrutinizing candidates for Sunday's presidential election is an organization of journalists and musicians known as Yen Amare, or Fed Up. From Dakar, VOA Salwa Jafari reports on how young Senegalese see the vote.
Y'en a marre began in 2011 to help register younger voters and engage a new generation of political activism. Rapper Simon Koukar is a founding member.
This is in order to redirect the concerns of the Senegalese at the heart of the electoral process. We have seen a lot of violence, but we want to examine the candidate's program, make sure it serves the needs of the Senegalese. We don't want the journalists to ask the questions. We want the carpenters, the tailors, the street vendors to be able to talk to the candidates.
For this election, the group invited candidates to make their case to younger voters. 44-year-old candidate Ousmane Sonko was the first to take up the challenge.
The first fight is to take back our sovereignty. To regain our sovereignty, we must have the courage to ask for at least 60% of our natural wealth, oil and gas. This is where we should start.
Natural resources, but also
independence and justice, employment for the youth. I am young and very interested in this issue. I would like to see what the different candidates have to offer.
We noticed that until now, there are a lot of people who are indecisive. That is why we've thought about organizing a forum.
Next up at the Forum of Young Voters was candidate Madické Niang, making a very presidential entry.
It is important to debate with the youth. They are the present and the future of Senegal. That's why I'm happy to be here to talk to them.
Younger voters are an increasingly important part of the electorate in a country where the average age is around 26 and nearly half of all young people are unemployed.
Well, as the hours tick down towards Sunday's presidential election, where incumbent Macky Sall is widely expected to win a second term, let's go live via Skype to VOA's Salwa Jafari, who's standing by in Dakar. Good evening, Salwa.
Hello, Vincent.
Well, it's just the last day of campaign there in Senegal. What is the mood like in Dakar?
Well, first of all, it's far from being full of surprises compared to Nigeria, but it's still interesting. So the campaign ends at midnight today, which means that the 5 candidates have less than 24 hours to convince. The mood is very festive. It's very noisy out there, and it's actually very hard to drive through the capital from point A to B. There are rallies everywhere, small streets, bigger streets. A lot of Macky Sall supporters wearing his colors, beige and brown, and driving on big trucks and waving his picture and chanting that to people that they don't have to go vote. He's already won. But anyway, the mood is very special here. As for the preparations before the vote, the local media has been covering that very extensively. Messages reassuring the people that the equipment have been delivered to the voting stations, that the security will be taken care of. Policemen have been dispatched. Everything's going to be okay, and everything is ready for the vote on Sunday. Yeah. So let me give you some figures before I move on. There will be 6.5 million voters on Sunday. The number of voting stations are more than 15,000, and a total of more than 5,000 foreign and national observers will be attending. And here's another one for you. 97% of voter cards have been collected, which I might say we could expect a very high rate of participation on Sunday.
Wow. Now, we know the Macky Sall supporters just think he has already won, but there are issues there. What are some of the main issues that are of concern to the voters? The others, at least.
There's a lot of issues, and security is not a major one. It's unlike what we've seen with DRC, for example, the past 3 weeks ago, and unlike what you're seeing in Nigeria right now. I think the most important issue here, and I've been talking to a lot of people, young and old people, the main concern is corruption. Senegalese people would like to see their wealth they would like to see their wealth. They would like to see that make sure that the wealth of the country have not been stolen from them. And we don't talk about this a lot, but there's a new major element in this election, in the election of 2019, which is the one of the discovery of gas and oil in 2014. And we're talking here about something like $500 billion worth of natural resources. Yeah, this is a big deal. So people are worried. Is this going to be a blessing or is it going to be a curse?
Let's hope it'll be a blessing, and we want to leave it at that, Salwa, because we want to hear more of your excellent reporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And now, voters, rather we want to thank Salwa, of course, but Senegal is known as the most stable democracy in West Africa. Again, here's viewer Salwa Jafari reporting from Dakar on what makes that nation different from others across the continent.
34 times this decade, African soldiers have tried to unseat their country's leader. Some of those coups have succeeded, some have not. In a long list of military interventions, Senegal stands out for its democratic transitions. Cheikh Anta Diop University professor Ibrahim Achoub.
Even though it feels as if you're on the edge of the precipice during the electoral campaign, the political parties always find a way to talk to each other.
Professor Achoub says Senegal founding father Léopold Sédar Senghor laid the foundation for democratic transition by establishing the political stability of moderate, pro-French socialism backed by governments in Paris. Political analyst Alioune Tine.
Senegal is characterized by the fact that all our politicians started experimenting with politics and democracy early on. We had Senghor, Lamine Gueye, Cheikh Anta Diop, and Mamadou Dia. They were all intellectuals with a great education.
Politicians, but also religious figures.
The religious authorities played a key role in the stability. After the monarchy and the titles, And once we had colonialism, what followed was the religious brotherhood, who still have a very important role in Senegal today.
Senegal's respect for democratic elections made it an early training ground for African leaders.
Senegal played a very important role in shaping the political process, including the RDA led by Houphouët-Boigny. Training centers played a major role.
Senegalese voters expect their proud history of democratic transition to continue with Sunday's election. Selwa Jafari, VOA News, Dakar.
Well, now let's go back to the interview by Peter Clote of VOA with Nigeria's renowned author Wole Soyinka.
There's so many factors at play. The issues, even though the parties are not clearly demarcated by any ideology, the issues are quite distinct. We're in a stage of moral heart soul-searching, really deep soul-searching, and issues of justice, the institutions of justice, the issue of corruption, the neglect or at least deterioration of infrastructures and so on. All these things are at stake. And we have promises on all sides. I think this must be one of the most confused electorate that's ever went to the polls in this nation.
Do you have confidence in the ability of this Electoral Commission to administer transparent and credible elections, Prof?
The two frontrunners, let's concede that they are frontrunners. The two frontrunners, their membership has crossed from one side to the other so often that on both sides, I think we will be able to count on at least one hand, if not two, some master riggers. So they know one another's secrets, and they can anticipate and take preemptive action. There's lots of screaming, as you know, lots of screaming. Every little thing that screams, and I look beneath those screams, and I find there's a kind of attempted distraction, and that we should examine very carefully those who scream loudest on both sides, especially when the issues over which they scream in terms of preparation are so trivial, so commonplace, so ordinary, easily, you know, which will watch them very carefully. But I think we have a situation of an interesting balance of terror. They've all been exposed on certain levels, but you know, Nigerians are very cunning. They have a genius for evil and for going round even a straight line, which opens up before them. They would rather go, you know, even the extra mile just to do some crooked things.
All eyes appear to be on Nigeria due to the country's importance in West Africa and Africa as a whole. Has Nigeria performed democratically under the spotlight?
No, I don't think so. I think some of the smaller nations have left us behind, you know, along the democratic pursuit.
Do you anticipate a challenge to the outcome of these elections?
We are in we're in a grave crisis, and the reason has been apparent because people rely on the courts, the judicial system. This is where everything usually ends. I think we're going to have lots of challenges here. And we're having those challenges at a time when the judiciary is in complete disarray. The separation of powers has become a confusion of powers. And so let's prepare for lots of challenges to whatever the results are.
Well, the Academy of Motion Picture, Arts and Science has nominated 8 films in the category of Best Picture. Only one will get the coveted award. VOA's Penelope Pulo takes a look.
You have become close to Abigail. She is a viper. You're jealous.
The Favorite, a dark comedy on scheming politics and power struggle during Queen Anne's royal court in the 18th century, and Roma, a nostalgic take on domestic help in a middle-class household in Mexico City, lead the pack with 10 Oscar nominations each. But the number of nominations does not guarantee the winner for Best Picture, considering 8,200 Academy members from different backgrounds are voting in the category, says playwright and director Murray Horwitz.
You may have a songwriter who wrote a song for one movie, won the Oscar, or was nominated for the Oscar, gets to vote now. I don't know if you're nominated, I think you get to vote. And so that person who may not know anything about film, but is a great musician, gets to vote for Best Picture.
What's the lyric?
Horwitz says some vote for their friends, others for or against a studio production company. But those who look at the merits of a Best Picture, he says, traditionally they look at the film's cinematography, film editing, direction, and script. But not always.
If Black Panther won Best Picture, I wouldn't be upset.
Nominated for 7 Oscars, that would be a first for a superhero flick. But then again, Ryan Coogler's Black Panther is no ordinary superhero movie. Artistic acclaim aside, it has become a cultural phenomenon that celebrates the African and African-American identity. But how does it stack up next to the competition?
Roma's a kind of masterpiece. I mean, it really is. The things that it has to say about human dignity, about the value of human life, about our complacency in a middle class or upper middle class environment. I mean, those things are all extremely powerful.
This is madness.
Sometimes a lady likes to have some fun.
And then there's The Favorite, checking all the right nomination boxes.
I love the fact that The Favorite featured women in all the most significant roles. Green Book is a movie that makes white people feel good about themselves.
On the other hand, says Horowitz, Spike Lee's 6 Oscar nominee, Black Klansman, a blistering satire on racism in America, has been criticized by some for over-politicizing the 1970s real-life story of an African-American cop infiltrating the Ku Klux Klan, alluding to today's political climate.
America first. America first.
This could alienate voters who may not be on message. Ultimately, Murray Horwitz says, the Oscar for Best Picture should be greater than its performers, its music, its script, its cinematography, and its impact. It should be all of the above. Penelope Pulu, VOA News, Washington.
And that's it. Good night.